forget tonight we have some amazing, amazing music sessions at Clark's Amer, the Jaipur music stage. We have Dub FX, and he's on at 7 o'clock. He's featuring Sahinda Apsara and Mahesh Vinayakram. And that is going to be an amazing, amazing performance. And then afterwards at 8:30, we have Soulmate performing until 10 p.m. So please do get your tickets from Book My Show. The desk is opposite tent 3 on your entrance, on your way in. You can buy tickets there, but they're going to sell out fast. So I would much more recommend getting your tickets here. All right, so without any further delay, I'm going to introduce our next session. The Empire of Enchantment, the story of Indian magic. What a wonderful title for our session. We have here already on the stage John Zubrzycki, and we have Sanjoy Roy, the Managing Director of Teamwork Arts, and so much more. And we'd now like to invite to the stage, if he's ready, wonderful guest, K.S. Ramesh. Could you please give everybody a warm welcome?
K.S. Ramesh is a magician beyond par excellence. He's also an actor. He was away for a month, I think, shooting in the beyond of somewhere, and he didn't magically get the network to work. So I couldn't get through to him, but hopefully we'll do something. John, absolute pleasure to welcome you. When I picked up your book, Jadoowallahs, Jugglers and Jinns, which is a must-read for everybody, let me tell you, I was absolutely engrossed and fascinated. Not so much because there was so much magic in it, but primarily because the history of magic is so beautifully encapsulated in this book, all the way from BC to now. I had no idea that Indian jugglers and Jadoowallahs had been exported or had traveled across the length and breadth of the world, taking their wonderful skills with them. And even what was even more amazing is the fact that you have married religion and religious practice and tradition to this entire thing. But more of that as we converse. Let me ask you to first tell us a little bit about the book. We're then going to ask Ramesh to cut Swami into two, which will solve the problem about asking any more questions, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, thank you very much, Sanjoy. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming here today. Can I ask the tech people to play the slides just on a loop? So I'm not going to be addressing them, but I just want you to get a feel for because magic is not just about words or tricks, it's also about the incredible imagery that went along with it. Look, it's fantastic to be here in the presence not only of just one magician, K.S. Ramesh, but of two, because Sanjoy here is a magician par excellence for putting on this incredible event.
It's all about Maya, and it's an illusion, as we will know.
It's an illusion, yes. We'll get to the illusion a bit later, but I can tell you this feels very real, and it's absolutely wonderful to be here. Look, I'm going to start off telling you what this book is not about. It's not about Godman, it's not about witches, it's not about the occult, it's not about why Sachin Tendulkar consulted his Parsi astrologer and then changed the number on his jersey to 33. And I'm not going to reveal any of the secrets of magic or the magician's craft. And don't try asking K.S. Ramesh either, because a real magician will never reveal his secrets. And while my list of conjurers, tricksters, and cunning con men is a long one, the book also features people you would not expect to be rubbing shoulders with such charlatans, including Motilal Nehru, Madam Karma, Subhash Chandra Bose. Even a mysterious potentate who called himself Prince Ranjit of Baluchistan and turned up in London in 1901, unannounced, much to the consternation of the India Office, with a retinue of 24 liveried servants who he'd paraded around Hyde Park. But there are references to Kautilya, who urged the use of sleight of hand artists as spies, and even Jehangir, whose obsession with magic interfered with the running of the state to obsessed him to such an extent that a group of petitioners wanting to report malpractice by the governor of Bengal had to dress up as magicians to get his attention. Okay, so the story of magic, as Sanjoy hinted, is a very, very long one indeed. Some would say as long as the rope that the magician throws into the air until its end disappears in the heavens. The Jataka tales, 6th century BC, contain references to snake charmers, sword swallowers, and the mango tree trick, which is still performed today. Indian fortune tellers were in great demand in ancient Rome. The Tang emperors of China employed Indian alchemists who peddled secret formulas that promised longevity and sexual prowess. And during the Abbasid Caliphate, the booksellers of Baghdad sold Indian conjuring manuals translated into Arabic. And in 1813, the enterprising captain of an East Indiaman docked on the Thames with a troupe of jugglers, a troupe of magicians, and their appearance in London changed the face of Western conjuring forever. Because within a few decades, continental magicians were blackening their faces, donning turbans, and adopting oxymoronic names such as the Fakir of Shiva, the Fakir of Simla, the Fakir of Ava, the Fakir of Ulu, and I kid you not, even the Fakir of Jaipur, prompting one writer to complain of the Fakir invasion, and I quote, "If there are any towns in India lucky enough to escape from these specialists, they must have been confined to Houdini's Chinese torture cell, probably the only place on earth where they would be secure from confiscation." Western magicians started traveling to India in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, filling their memoirs with stories of encounters with Indian conjurers, proving their superiority by engaging with Indian street magicians, debunking their tricks, and stealing those they could use for their stage shows back home. Thousands of magicians from India were recruited for the great world fairs of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And one of those doing the recruiting was India's very own P.T. Barnum. Can anybody guess who that was? Motilal Nehru, yes. Just imagine if he'd continue on this career where the political history of India would have been today. The great patriarch of the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty in 1900 recruited a troupe of 60 jugglers for the Paris exposition. 50 million people went through the turnstiles in Paris. Almost as many as went through the turnstiles here at JLF. And most of them made a beeline for Motilal Nehru's snake charmers and sleight of hand artists. So closely was India associated as a place where feats of magic were commonplace that in December 1899, London's Strand magazine declared, "Ask the average man for what India is most celebrated, and chances are 10 to 1 that he will ignore the glories of the Taj Mahal, the beneficence of British rule, even Mr. Kipling, and reply unhesitatingly in one word, jugglers." So that for me is the essence of really what this book is about. I wanted to explore how Indian magic achieved that accolade and what has happened since.
Thank you, John, for that fabulous introduction, and we'll come back to the state of it now and then go back into history. Ramesh, I've been wanting to see your wonderful tricks for so many years, and this is the first occasion. Come on, enthrall us. Do your first trick.
Live magic?
Absolutely.
Okay, there we go. Fakir Ramesh. Good afternoon, everybody. When you talk about magic or anything to do with magic, it's always, when you see a magician, you want to see something. That is the awe, that is the magic of magic. So absolutely. I'll kick off with, are you all interested in more of listening or see some magic?
We
Yes?
want to see some
Okay.
magic. I think.
See some magic. I'll just step aside and get a few things. In the meanwhile,
Let me ask,
Okay, we'll chat.
John, the courts of India celebrated magic. The courts of Iran and Persia and Babylon, etc., have all of these wonderful tales. And yet today, in 2000 and whatever, when you actually go to where a group of magicians made their home, Katputli colony, which doesn't exist anymore, it's impoverished. There's very little, father to son, passing the tricks on. What's happened and why have we lost that wonderment? Is it because of Google and the internet and the phone?
Look, I think to an extent it is. And look, life is tough, not just for magicians, but for all manner of folk performers. At least in Kathmandu colony, which I don't know if any of you have ever
This
heard
is in
of.
It's in West Delhi, which is where all the performers from what used to be the Festival of India, I think that's what it was called at that point, in the early 1980s, were brought in from different parts of the country and then planted there in this sort of slum development thing, which has now been razed to the ground.
Yeah, raised to the ground to make way for India's another shopping mall and I think Delhi's highest residential tower. Look, at least in Kathmandu colony, they were organised into some sort of a cooperative, and Rajiv Sethi was instrumental in doing that. But look, it was tough for them. Do you blame the internet? Do you blame Google? You could also blame even Delhi's anti-begging laws, which apparently were repealed recently. But that meant that if you were a Jadoowallah, if you were a magician and you wanted to perform on the street, which is the only place you can perform because there are hardly any parks, as you know, in Delhi, you'd set yourself up, much like Ramesh is doing here. But by the time you started performing, the police would come, hit you over the head with a lathi and demand a bakshish of 100 rupees to let you.
Well,
perform.
as we have very friendly police here, आपको दिखाई दे रहा है इनका magic? Let's have something that Ramesh does. Yes. You can use the mic on the podium if you want.
Used to some music.
Some music. Can we get some music? Ramesh, how did you get involved in magic?
It's not finished yet.
There we go. I always like to get the audience. Humne pakad liya. There we are. There's so much of magic in this book. Now you believe it?
Yes.
It comes out of nowhere.
How did you get involved in magic, Ramesh?
I, as a youngster in school, took to magic as a hobby. And then, I guess along the way, there was an applause, a small applause somewhere among friends and family, and always wanted to do something very, very different from what was happening around me. I took up magic as a hobby, and then developed it on my own, watching others. And it's a long journey. I started off in magic when there were no books or no internet or no YouTube and no electronics to help me. And then during college, I developed a show, went around representing my school and college in different festivals and so on, because it was a very, very unique art. And then went on to become a member of the Magic Circle in London. I was the first Indian
Oh, you were with it.
to go there.
The Magic Circle is probably the most prestigious magic society in the world.
Magic
Yes,
society.
absolutely.
Of course, taking to magic in India is very tough, where it could be family, the society, and right now I'm sitting here in the biggest literature festival this side of the world or anywhere as a magician. So this is one of my achievements
Thank you.
of coming up on this stage.
John, he said, today magic is tough. And yet, when you read the accounts in your book from age immemorial, there was this incredible hunger to bring to the courts, or the big courts, the jugglers and the magicians from India. In India, if you can just tell us how the tradition actually began, and how did this sort of myth of the Indians, as you said, people had to paint their faces in a different color, or a color representing ourselves, or the exotic, and how much of it is about imagery as well?
Okay, a lot of it is about imagery. I mean, obviously, you know, the very first travelers from Greece who came to India in the 4th, 5th century BCE started to describe India in very magical terms. I mean, a lot of it was imagined, but it was still to the Western audiences had this magical quality about it. And that just, as you keep reading through particularly travelers' accounts, that magic quality just intensifies and intensifies and intensifies. There are accounts by Arab merchants, travelers, seafarers. You get in Marco Polo's works, in Ibn Battuta's works. There's a very famous description of the Indian rope trick that Battuta describes. It just, this magic quality just keeps on coming up, and magic was almost omnipresent. I read out that quote from the Strand magazine, which really India and its magic are almost synonymous there, and certainly it just excited the imaginations of particularly Westerners, and magic, as I said, was omnipresent. It was in the courts. Magicians were celebrated for their skills as performers, and were used by, and there were court magicians who were specifically employed to entertain members of the court, to entertain the women in the harem, to entertain foreign dignitaries, and courts even competed against each other for who had the best magicians. So there was an integral part of Indian culture, of Indian society.
And yet, in much of the European world, if you were actually, in a sense, a magician or a wizard or a witch, you were actually put up on a stake and burned to cinders. Right. How is it that they accepted this as being different from the threat that they had earlier sort of thought, and the number of witches that they burnt at the stake? Yeah,
no, that was commonplace, particularly in about the 16th, 17th century onwards. And actually, it's interesting that there were Samuel Ridd in I think 1656 or something published a book called The Discovery of Witchcraft, which was basically a conjuring manual which set out to prove that what people thought was witchcraft was actually just trickery. And it was essentially, to prove that magic was trickery rather than something that was supernatural or occult or black or something to be feared. In India, the boundaries between secular magic, stage magic, the sort of thing that we're going to see here later on, and magic and as a religious practice were blurred. Take walking on hot coals. It's essentially a trick. But someone would do it in order to prove that they had some sort of magical powers, whereas in the West it was a trick. So there is that sort of blurred lines, which I guess made all these different forms of magic acceptable.
And yet, when you talk about the Buddha, for example, there are references in the book where Buddha is ascribed powers which were magical in a form, in a sense very much with what came later in the Western religious iconography of anybody who did magic had to be of a particular kind and couldn't just be a magician.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yes, so the Buddha was imbued with magical qualities. He could fly into the air. He could multiply. There'll be multiple Buddhas. There are numerous Jataka tales which contain references, even to, there's a very early reference to a version of the rope trick in the Jataka tales as well. And these are all used to illustrate these particular powers that the Buddha had.
Was Hanuman magical in the way that he could increase his height and reduce his height? And
absolutely. Yeah, no, that magic is everywhere. What is magic? I mean, as I said, look, at the beginning of the talk, I essentially am looking at the evolution of Indian stage magic, of performance magic. Magic as entertainment. People, there are books, dozens of books trying to define what magic is, and magic is such an overused term. I think when the BJP lost the elections here, there were headlines asking, "Has Modi lost his magic?" You know.
We'll come to him in a bit.
That's right. But I mean, I call it in the book. It's a really short definition: the artful performance of impossible effects. That to me is what magic is. That's what we just saw Ramesh just do.
Ramesh, you said it's so difficult now. Why?
Well, where I come from, I mean, from India, from Bangalore. Especially in Bangalore, there's something wrong with you if you're not a software engineer.
Is that magic? Is there a magic to that?
In Bangalore, I'm there, a magician. Of course, these days now, since the last 10, 15 years, it's a good profession to be in. And, you travel the world. But most importantly, there is this sense of satisfaction when you see that awe in the audience. Any art. Magic is it's not a very heavy classical art as such. It's all about secrets, and I'm sitting here because you don't know where the door opens. Of course, there's more to it. But today, yes, there are million-dollar productions and mega entertainment and so on and so forth. I've done quite a bit of it. But in India, I don't think even now, I've done a lot in magic. In the film industry, I've introduced magic in the movies or entertainment or live events and so on and so forth. I still get asked, "वो सब ठीक है, but आप करते क्या हैं?"
So what do you do? That's fine that you're a magician, but what do you do? What's your profession?
What's your profession? So we are still there. I mean, our society is not, I travel the world, so there I see, because people are looking for that, that magical moment in any field. Well, this is an art which directly gives you that awe and that fascination.
Are you going to show us another small trick? I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of volunteers in the audience to be cut up into many pieces.
Okay.
Go for it.
No, after I arrived here yesterday, there was a lot of demand to cut Sanjoy into two.
I could offer up a press person. They're easier to...
No, it's very easy for me to cut you, but joining back will be a problem. I don't have my assistants and equipment, all that paraphernalia you see. Nevertheless, share some magic.
While you set up, I'm going to ask... oh, you have? Okay. Yes. Is that mic working? The stand mic? I think it's on, yeah.
It is. Thank you. No, I think I'll do some magic with the book. John? Okay. Can I?
Yeah, please, absolutely. Can you make it sell? Put it to the top of the bestseller list?
I thought it's already there.
I wish.
When magicians are on stage, I just reach out and produce a lot of money and all that. But all that is an illusion. You have to work hard. Now, here's a book written about Indian magic. Firstly, I thank John on behalf of the entire fraternity and millions of people, magicians, amateurs, professionals, and so on, for having done so much of research about, magic
Incredible
from my
book.
own country. Thank you. And now I'm going to show you what this book is all about. If all of you are impressed with what I do, on your way out, everybody, I can see their faces, they promise to buy this before they leave the festival. Promise? Oh, lovely.
It was a very weak promise. I mean, this magician thing hasn't quite established itself yet.
And a magician always needs a volunteer. Anybody who wants to come up on stage? Please come. Yeah?
You can keep your badge on. It's okay. Just
Okay. Hi. Now I'll try that illusion of where I cut somebody in. The sword? There's a big sword. No? Okay, no, we will make do with another trick, yeah. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Gavish.
Gavish? Come here. Yeah, yeah. Now here's a book about magic.
Okay.
Yes? Take this, riffle through, and can you see any magic there? Unless you read. Yes?
I just
Okay. That's all. You will know what magic in this book only after you buy it and get his signature. That's what this festival is all about. Okay? Now what do you do, Ramesh?
I'm still studying in school.
Studying in school. Okay. You flip the pages and stop wherever you want. Above your head. Yeah. Anywhere you want.
Can I just pull a random page?
Random page. Its choice is yours.
Oh, this one.
Sorry?
This page.
This page? Here? Absolutely?
Yes.
Now that is your choice. Audience? You want to change it? No. That is where you stopped. Right? It is your choice from this book of Jadoowallahs, Jugglers and Jinns. Do you know what page number you stopped at?
I don't know.
You don't know? Good for me. Okay. Now we will see what page you stopped at. Just go, remember the page number. Yeah?
See.
Yes? Look into my eyes.
Yes.
Okay? Do this. Okay. I've been doing that for 40 years. Even I don't know why I do that. But they've been believing it for hundreds and hundreds of years whenever an Indian did this. That's what this book is about. Okay. Ramesh, here's then. What page number did you go to?
I stopped at page number 296.
Sorry?
296.
296. Page number 296. Yes? Are there that many numbers?
Oh, there's, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fat book.
It's a fat book.
It's a fat book. Okay. You went to page number 296. It was your choice. Yeah? Now let's read that page, whatever. You go to page 296. Before you open it, I have a prediction here. There's something written in here. It says, I'm going to meet so-and-so on stage. I know everything about your family. What do you do in the college? What do you do outside the college? It's all in here. I've predicted that.
Can't believe that.
Your family here?
No.
No. Okay, then don't worry. But here's an envelope which was all the while lying on the table there. I just want to touch this. Did you see the magic happen? No? Okay. You go to your page, page 296. Is what you said?
Yes.
Okay. It was your free choice?
Yes.
Nobody forced you to go to that page? Okay. Now here, so that Sanjoy and John and everybody can see. Yeah. Come back.
There
What?
is no page. It is torn. It is torn.
That particular page is torn.
Yes.
Show it to them. John,
Was it torn when you put the thing in?
No. I have no idea.
sorry. You just took the book about magic. You said you went to page 296. No hanky-panky. And it's torn. It is not there.
I don't know where it is.
Okay. Now this is the prediction which I said, which I all the while had on the table. Watch my hands. Now let them watch. Sanjay. This is the hotel envelope. And this is the prediction of, oh wow, there's no prediction. Oh, there's a piece of paper. Let's go to 296. Page 296. Does it match? Oh, it does. It's part of the same page. There we are. This book with compliments to you. Because this is the only book in the world where this has happened. Magic has happened. And that is John's book. There we are.
Amazing. In the quotes, John, you talk about how the jugglers and, of course, the Jadoowallahs used to conjure up these incredible sights. Tell us about some of what they conjured up: trees and birds and and elephants and.
Where to start? I actually do start the book describing the encounter that Jehangir had with a group of troupe of magicians from Bengal. There were 7 of them, and they performed a series of 28 tricks over the course of several days and nights. And they included making an orchard grow out of the ground, so planting seeds, trees grew up, bore fruit, changed to autumnal hues, the leaves fell down. One magician had a book that every time you opened its pages, a different set of images would come up. Sometimes there were letters, sometimes there were pictures. You had another magician who could regurgitate live snakes from his mouth, cobras, pulled out one after another, one after another. There's a description of a dismemberment trick as well. In Delhi, when I was researching this book, I had a close friend there who organized a performance for me on the outskirts of Delhi in Ghaziabad. And he brought the magicians from just across the border in Ghaziabad. And there, in a cul-de-sac, it was November or something like that, there was about 7 of them as well. And totally at random, they performed a number of tricks that were almost identical to the ones that Jehangir had witnessed 400 years ago. And they included levitation, dismemberment, making a tree grow out of the bare earth. Instead of regurgitating live snakes, a magician regurgitated balls, then nails, rusty nails by the mouthful. The whole manner of tricks. And what was, there was another magician who had a book. Every time he opened the pages, there was something different. There was lettering, there was drawings, the pages changed color. Everything was done like this. Ramesh, you must be familiar with all these tricks. But what it proved to me was just the long provenance of these tricks, how they'd been handed down through the generations, largely unchanged. And if you ask me what my favorite trick is, it's probably the basket trick, which I saw performed for the first time in about 1979. This was when, traveling around India, you would often encounter Jadoowallahs, something you don't do so much these days. And this was in Alipurdwar in West Bengal, just outside the railway station there. A magician had a basket, and into that basket went a small boy. The basket was just big enough to hold the boy. He put a lid on top of the basket, got this huge knife, and started stabbing the basket with the knife. Every time he plunged the knife into the basket, you heard screams. Every time he withdrew the knife, it was covered in blood. He did this several times, and then finally put the knife in one last time, took the lid off, and lifted the boy out with the knife through his neck. And I was standing there as close as I am to you, Sanjoy, and I could see no trickery involved. It looked to me like this knife was actually going through this boy's neck. And he was lifting the boy up using the knife, lifting him up into the air, put him back into the basket, did some, by that stage, of course, everybody had to, throw money into, otherwise he said that the boy would die. And then he lifted the lid off the basket, and there was the boy who emerged completely unscathed.
Wow. Ramesh, all of what John describes in the book, so some of it, of course, is illusion, some of it is magic, as you've shown us, tricks. how do you realize when you want to use one kind of act as opposed to the other? The sawing, for example, is obviously an illusion, so you set the stage to that. What you've done right now is a trick in a sense. So how do you sort of go from one to the other as a magician today?
It's my experience, and once you see, experience, you get to know the audience, the profile of the audience, and I know what this audience would like.
So you basically base it on that. You look at who there is in the audience and then you make that happen.
I would have a repertoire of 3 truckloads of equipment.
But in the days that these Jadoowallahs and Jinns used to sort of, not the Jinns, but Jadoowallahs used to practice, Jinns are still around, you didn't have film and cinema and television. Has that sort of changed the kind of trick that you can do?
Very much, yeah.
Tell us how.
Well, entertainment, earlier, the fondness for magic somewhere, it will always be there. Whatever the technology, the awe and the fabulous scale of events or movies, the awe of seeing live magic will always be there. I'm not, a lot of people say, okay, this is the end of this art. No, it will always be there because, such a well-read audience, I still had an applause for something, a sleight of hand, and because you don't know what I do. But of course now, the television remote has 800 channels, and then once you're free of it, there is cricket. And once you're free of cricket, there is cricket.
And then there's the mall. Then there's the mall. Then there's the mall going
and then
shopping
there's
to
the mall. There is so much happening because people are looking for that, that nasha of aaj kuch alag karte hain yaar. Let's do something different. Yeah. That line itself is people are looking for something different. Let's go to a different restaurant. Let's go. All this is catering to that basic need of, people for that. Something different, and this art directly gives you that. And of course, now in India, you can't afford to produce those massive illusion or magic shows which happen in Las Vegas and so on, because here no one would buy a ticket for 20,000 rupees for a magic show.
Show us one of your next tricks.
One more?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. With this, I'll also tell you why magic is all about sleight of hand, or sleight of equipment, and so on and so forth. In my country, I still go to rural areas to tell them that there is nothing supernatural about me. As president of our Magic Academy, I still do that because there's so much of superstition about what we do, and so on. It's all the speed. Technically, when you see a movie, it is 24 frames a second. That is what is the movie. But if you're faster than that, it becomes magic. Because I'm a filmmaker too, so that is the language I'll explain that. So I'll show you something. It's a pure sleight of hand. And just, I'll teach you magic also, course of this session.
I think you're being very modest. I think, your magic is surpasses just standard sleight of hand.
Scissor?
No, it's okay.
No. Wow. Wow.
It's all happening right in front of you. There, just 2 hands and 1,000 eyes watching. All of you better watch here, not on the big screen, because in India we have a lot of smart people who come for a live show. They watch the big screen and say, it's all camera trick, man.
Amazing.
Whoa, big hand.
Yeah, there you go.
Incredible.
Thank you.
And there we have the Indian rope trick, or a version of it.
Which
See,
is
that
what
was what I just did was it's pure sleight of hand.
Pure sleight of hand,
It
I
was
know,
all
I know.
there,
I
all
don't know how you
happening.
do it,
There's
but
an
I know
explanation
that
to that,
Amazing.
but
Amazing.
there's no trick ropes, it is pure sleight of hand.
So,
believe me.
John, coming back to the Indian
rope trick.
did you finally find the magic behind it?
Well, the magic behind the Indian rope trick is very interesting because whereas there are references to it that go back, as I said, to the 6th century BCE, it really started as a piece of fake news that went viral in 1890. So everybody knows about the rope trick. The magician throws a rope into the air. It stays rigid enough for the magician's assistant to climb up, disappear. Dismembered limbs of that assistant come raining down, and the magician covers them with a blanket, reassembles them, and the assistant is whole again. That is essentially the Indian rope trick. So in 1890, the Chicago Tribune sent 2 journalists to India to find out whether this was real or not. One was also a photographer, and the other one was an artist. So they went and saw a Jadoowallah performing a series of tricks. The final one was the Indian rope trick. Now, the photographer thought he was being smart and photographed the trick being done. And when they went to develop the film, they saw that there was nothing there, okay? The crowd had been hypnotized. This, at least, is what was published in the newspaper. It was a hoax. It was a story planted. And the byline of the writer was Fred S. Elmore, Fred Selmore Newspapers, okay? But nobody got the joke. And by the time the newspaper published a retraction, it was too late because the story, even in 1890, had already gone viral. It had been republished in other papers in America. It had been translated into numerous languages and published all over Europe. So the myth of the legend of the Indian rope trick really was born then. But what happened was that a lot of people came out of the woodwork and said, no. It's not hypnotism. I have actually seen the rope trick being performed. And so what you had for really the next 40 years was this debate that was raging between those who believed that the rope trick was something real and those who believed that it was a hoax or the result of hypnotism. Now, can you hypnotize a crowd? Can I hypnotize all of you to go and buy my book? I don't think so. I don't think even Ramesh can. So that was one bone of contention. But what happened essentially was in 1934, the Magic Circle, as I said before, the world's most prestigious magic society of which you are a member, decided that they would try and cut down the rope trick once and for all. So they convened a special meeting, assembled lots of experts, went through the evidence and said, no, it does not exist. And if anybody can do it without any props, they will be paid 500 guineas, which was quite a large amount in those days. Now, I don't know if you remember the images that I was showing before. There was one of a magician doing the rope trick, and the rope was going up in the air, and the magician's assistant was climbing that rope. So that magician's name was Karachi. He was the first one to try and claim that 500 guinea prize. Karachi's real name was Arthur Claude Darby. He was a fitter and turner from Plymouth, and he was a gypsy. But he dressed in the Indian garb, and his assistant Qaida, whose real name was Cyril, climbed the rope. It was done out in the middle of nowhere without any props. In fact, it was done on a freezing cold day. There was a blizzard blowing on the outskirts of London. But he didn't get to claim the prize because Qaida, when he reached the top, didn't disappear. But the secret of how he made that rope rise up into the air, strong enough for his assistant to climb up, he took that to the grave. No one ever worked out how it was done.
Wow. Last question before we open it to the audience, and then we'll get Ramesh to do another trick. Last trick before we finish is Houdini.
Houdini started off his career as a Hindu fakir, okay? This oxymoronic name. But he actually didn't do very much magic, but he did inspire a lot of Indian magicians to take up handcuff acts and so on. I bring him into the book just to demonstrate how quickly that magical knowledge was transmitted from west to east and vice versa. Because within a few months of Houdini in 1900 at Scotland Yard doing the handcuff tricks, you had Indian magicians imitating those tricks. And you even had a Bengali magician, Ganapati Chakraborty, who in the early 1900s, one of Houdini's tricks was being manacled and then releasing himself. Ganapati Chakraborty went one better. He was manacled, released his chains, and then remanacled himself. Yes.
And myth and belief play a very strong part. Maybe a decade ago, there was this big thing about Ganesh across the world drinking milk.
Yes.
How did that work? Is it primarily because of the belief, or was there some kind of...
Yeah, well, I think we're all familiar. I was actually here when that was happening. The Ganesh drinking the milk. Well, I think that was because the marble statues were porous, and it seemed as if the idol was drinking the milk, but it was actually the milk being absorbed into the porous marble or other material that the statues were made out of. But I remember being here, I was here as a foreign correspondent and actually reported on it. It was back in the about 96, I think. But yes, belief has a lot to do with it, of course, yes. And if you believe something, it's real magic, then it's magic. But as Ramesh says, he goes around villages actually explaining to people that this sort of stuff is fakery. It's not. Don't believe it. It's trickery. It's not magic. It's nothing supernatural about it.
Audience questions. I'll take it in clusters, so perhaps you can start. Doc is an oncologist, so it's important to...
Thank you. I wanted to ask, most of us, at least for me, magic is something where you escape to. You run away from the realities, harsh realities of life, and you want to go to that magical land. Do you think internet is one of the killers of the interest in magic today? That we are all so hooked onto internet, and that's the world that we are escaping to, that the real world of magic on the stage is not more alluring now?
No, you can become an instant magician these days. Right now I'm sure there are a lot of people Googled and how did he cut a rope and join it back. I think a lot of you already have the answer. You can learn magic or anything, but still, as I said, the live,
The demonstration of magic.
Yeah. It's like, you perform magic. You can learn how to walk on the YouTube, but the beauty is going for an early morning walk.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the gentleman here, and then we'll go to the girl at the back.
My question is, magic as such has existed in practically every culture across the globe, from the shamans to the Native Americans. So do you think magic can be ascertained by scientifically verifiable processes, the process of magic, or is it in the realm of the occult and the esoteric?
Sorry, can magic...
As in, can the process of magic be, as in...
scientifically
investigated
by
yes,
it has been
scientifically verifiable evidence, or is it a mystery? Is it in the realm of the occult?
Yeah, look, it has. I mean, it's constantly being probed, and scientists have studied what it is about the magician's craft that enables them to be able to trick people. They've looked at the sleight of hand, and they've measured their, brain waves or whatever to see, how people react to it. There was, for instance, in the 1930s, there was an Indian magician whose name was Khuda Baksh. I don't know if any of you have heard of him, but he was actually very, very famous in his days. He was from Kashmir originally. One of his tricks was the X-ray eyes trick. So in the presence of doctors, lumps of dough were put over his eyes, and then his head was bandaged so tightly there was absolutely no way that he could see through those bandages, and there were doctors there to make sure that there was no, gauze or something there that enabled him to do that. And you could open the page of any book. You could take a book off a bookshelf, open it randomly at any page, and he would be able to read what was on that page. Okay, so that was something that he actually took to his grave as well. He was probably the most skilled practitioner of that particular trick.
Or mental reader.
Mental reader. Now, there was trickery involved. It's impossible to do that, but just exactly how he did it, no one could ever work out, even his fellow magicians. There was another experiment that was conducted. He was also the first person to do a fire walk in England. So they built a huge pit, measured the temperatures of the coals, and they were hot enough to melt steel, and he walked across it. And there were, again, the temperature of the soles of his feet was measured before and after. They would check that there was no, that they weren't callous, that there was no special ointment or anything put on them. And again, all this was scientifically tested. They did work out how he did it. I'm not going to tell you because it would spoil the the trick. And it's anyway, you'll find out a little bit about that in the book. But there's always been this, magic has always been subjected to this scientific, rigorous testing. I mean, particularly in the 20th century.
Ramesh, you wanted to answer?
Yeah, I'm not to answer what is occult and belief, and that's a completely different. I want to tell you about magician. Of course, this is an art which is and can be misused. My campaign of being on stage and entertaining and showing you all these fabulous tricks, unless I tell you how I do them, you will never be able to figure out how I do that. But I'm here in a black suit like anybody else, a normal guy. Imagine if I do this as Swami Ramesh Anand. Just imagine. I'm doing it for entertainment, but small things. I can produce an elephant on stage. I have produced helicopters on stage. But if I produce something very small,
Coins and what's it called?
It's big business, Sanjoy.
It's big business.
10 acres in Jaipur.
Well, I've got long hair. I can quite easily do that. Maybe he'll pay for the festival. The young girl, yes, stand up.
A very good afternoon to all. My question to Mr. John is that when and why did you decide to choose Indian magic as a subject for your book?
I always wanted to get Jehangir, the Indian rope trick, and Jeff the talking mongoose into the one book. There is something about Jeff the talking mongoose, who was from Hindustan and haunted a house on the Isle of Wight. But no, look, I'm a journalist by profession, a historian by, at least aspiring to be one. But I think as a journalist, I was always on the lookout for interesting, untold stories. And I mean, this book just has them in bucket loads, because I just discovered so many fascinating characters. Kuda Bux, who I just mentioned, Kashmiri magician, probably none of you have ever heard of. Ramos Same was a magician who was around in the early 19th century. His name was a corruption of Ramaswamy. He was from South India. He was the most famous Indian magician of the first half of the 19th century. You find references to him in Dickens, who was so inspired after seeing Ramos Same perform during the interval of one of his plays that he actually went on stage himself. He was an amateur magician pretending to be an Indian magician. And there were dozens and dozens of these extraordinary characters, extraordinary stories that really just hadn't been told. And to me, that was like a gold mine. It was, it was thrilling to be able to pull all of them together, to do the research, to find the archival material, to find references to Motilal Nehru, in the Maharashtra State Archives, taking time out to take Jugglers to Paris. I mean, all these extraordinary stories, which also cast a light. It's like a parallel history of India, told through its magic. And I love parallel histories as a writer, as a reader. And this book was was just something that I think brings that to light, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing it.
Very quickly, the girl who just had a mic, I think she was standing. Yeah. Yes, stand. No, this one. No. You've asked. Okay, the one in front? Yes, all the way in front, and that'll be the last question. We're going to get Ramesh to do a trick.
Could you tell me why you think that there's less interest in magic nowadays? I think there's more.
Look, I actually think the interest is coming back. Yes, because of YouTube, anybody can go onto YouTube and watch, an incredible performance of David Copperfield or Dynamo or any of these people. But there is a difference. You can buy, you can watch as many videos as you like. You can buy as many instructional books as you like. You can even work out how these tricks are done. But to actually perform them in a way that is going to convince all of you, like Ramesh has done already today, a couple of times and will do again, that what he's doing, to you to suspend belief for that split second or for that minute and think that, hey, what he is doing is not tricky, but it's real magic. And that is the art of magic. There was a Frenchman father of the modern magic, was Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin, who in the 1840s said that a magician is an actor playing the part of a magician. It's in the performance. That's what it is. I mean, the two are, being a magician and being a performer who can actually perform that magic and make you suspend belief is what magic is all about.
So let's get actor and magician Ramesh to do a last trick.
Yes. Now also, madam, why... it's another why the losing of interest in magic. It's not that the standard of magic has gone down anywhere. It's because all of you, everybody has a child in them. You have been all your life pushing the child down and unfortunately trying to become adults. This is the only art where the child in you can enjoy. This is the art. This is the. You remember the first magic show you saw in your life. You don't know the concert you went to last week. So that is the thrill of magic. So I request all of you to leave all your designations outside the auditorium whenever you go for a magic show and enjoy as a child. Magic will cater to you.
The last trick.
The last one? Okay. And also, no, the last one. See, I know 40 years of performing magic, they need more and more and more of magic. But as I've been honored by being invited to the festival here, I'm here tomorrow.
We are honored that you've come.
No. It's my honor. And being an entertainer and a magician, if I'm walking around, just catch me and ask me to do a trick, I'll do it for you. I'm here tomorrow and leaving day after. Yes,
maybe at lunchtime or something you can do a trick outside.
This session shouldn't hold back me entertaining people.
Thank you.
One more trick, sir?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'll show you a nice one and then I'll teach you magic and then we...
Okay. We have, I think we have very few minutes left, so a quick last one. Yeah.
I think I'll be able to pull it off. Some money.
Is this pre-demonetization money or post-demonetization?
Oh, yeah, there we are. No, I love doing magic money. Oh, when you spoke about, you just reminded me. This is how I got by demonetization. Yes, I'm the only one in this country who did it. I didn't go to the ATM at all. Now this is how I make my money. You can all meet me backstage if you want to learn how to do this. Okay, very quick one. To my dear friend Sanjoy. Now here are, please, some currency.
Yes, 10 and 10.
10 and 10, take these. Yes?
Yeah.
Right, sir? Okay. Now watch this. I'll put my sleeves up. Well, there's a very old saying, I don't know where it came from. They say, he has got everything up his sleeve.
Everything.
I produce an elephant on stage, people say, "Arey, idhar hi kuch kahin chupa." So here, 2 currency notes.
Yes.
Lovely. The camera can come close. I'm the only magician who doesn't cheat. Don't worry. You can come close.
Zoom in.
Yeah. Here's, I'll place these 2 notes one on top of each other. Right? Flat, one on top of each other. I'll go one step ahead. I'll make this happen in your hands. Hold them like this. No, this way. Yeah. You want to make sure they're flat.
They're flat.
No hanky-panky. No folds anywhere.
Nope.
Yeah, this way, please. So that the camera can catch this. Yes?
Yes.
Now, if I cut these 2 notes right in the middle, do we get 4 or 6 or 8?
4.
You're sure?
Yes.
Oh, 2 into 2 is 4. Such an intelligent audience. Yeah? No, you all wanted me to cut Sanjoy into 2.
Hold on.
But this is a minor version of that in
No,
your honor.
let it be said that this is magic and we are not this thing disgracing the national flag, the national symbol. I don't need another trade court case.
You've been consulting your lawyer.
I have no choice.
That is why I said it is happening in your hands. I've got nothing to do with it. Yeah? After I cut, Sanjay, don't shake.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
Don't shiver, don't shake. Shall I?
Yes.
You'll all see something which you've never been able to see. Yes. Currency notes being cut. It is illegal in this country.
Don't keep saying it.
And there's a police officer. But watch. Yeah?
Yep.
Don't shake. Now here. 4 or 6?
4.
Come on. The question of my reputation as KS. So this also has been captured on the video. Nobody can take us to court. A quick one. I promise to teach them a trick. Yeah? Very quick one. No, very simple. In fact, all you adults go home, pick up a hobby like magic you'll enjoy. Go home and take a white cardboard like this, paint dots. 6 and 3. I'll teach you how to do it. You can make it 4 or 1. They're very simple. That's what I've been doing all the while. I've been showing you the right place at the wrong time and the wrong place at the right time. 6, 3, 4, 1. You say 1 and 3, but there are only 2 there. On the other side, you said 4 and 6, there are only 5. Right? You put your hands on the empty space and say 6. Put your hand on the empty space here and say 3. Don't say 2, say 3, they'll believe you. You just did. Close this and say 4. Close this dot and you say 1. So very simple. 6, 3, 4, 1. I think people in sales would know this better. No, but then any art requires a lot of dedication, practice, hard work, magic, anything, a lot of hard work. If you don't work hard on this, you might get stuck with 6. And you say 3, you've not done your homework, don't look for Ramesh to help you. Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you so much, K.S. Ramesh, actor, magician, John Zubrzycki, Jadoowallahs, Jugglers and Jinns. Remember, you saw it here at the Jaipur Literature Festival. Thank you all.
Thank you. What a wonderful session. I think that proves that actually there is more interest than ever looking at our crowd. Thank you to our sponsors, Patrick, Game Changer Series. We really appreciate all your support. What an absolutely wonderful panel. Another round of applause for our wonderful panelists. Thank you so much.
और पिछले 50 साल में तो कई बार